If you had never opened your mouth and highlighted how Doug Peterson coached Nick Foles differently and how he asked of more from Carson Wentz, then I would get where you're coming from. I wouldn't agree with it, but I would get where you're coming from. The problem is you were making the argument that Carson Wentz, because of his talent and his upside and how elite you believed him to be, was asked to do more by Doug Peterson. Then when he goes out there and tries to do more, but they gave him less than they gave him 2 years ago or even last year to do it, now you have a problem.
This is what you're arguing. Max, yes, Carson Wentz has regressed, but there are external reasons for the regression.
I'm not saying that.
First of all, he hasn't regressed.
I haven't said that.
Well, I think he has.
I haven't said that.
But you're wrong.
Guys, I just pointed out a situational football play just now. I
Max,
pointed out the fumbles.
You act like no quarterback has ever fumbled from holding the ball too long in the pocket on third down. Like that's part of football happens sometimes.
That's right. It is part of football. When you're playing one of the worst teams in the league, who's a divisional rival, and you're fighting for your playoff life on the road, and it's a 6 minutes left in the game, a 3rd and 2, elite quarterback it can't happen. You can't hold the ball too long in that situation. Now, I'm holding Wentz to an elite standard because that's how he got paid, and that's the talent that you just sat there, and I agree with you. He has, no doubt about it. And I'm thinking about the last great quarterback in Philadelphia, Donovan McNabb, who could do more with less, and Wentz seemed to me to have at least that kind of talent, where he could do more with less. But what I see is when you take the help away, McNabb did not have a lot of offensive help a lot of those years, and they consistently went to the NFC Championship.
Let me educate you about something.
You might want to go check those Eagles teams.
Name-wise, you're right. Name-wise, because Alshon Jeffrey had a resume before he arrived in Philadelphia from when he was in Chicago, okay? But the reality is this. Freddie Mitchell, Todd Pixton, James Thrash, and those guys.
Westbrook.
They were all, that's right.
Sanders is an emerging running back.
But what does that have to do with now?
Let me explain. The reason why is all those outside of Westbrook, who was considered an absolute stud, and arguably Donovan McNabb's most reliable target. All of those guys were perceived as being overachievers. Mm-hmm. No one has accused guys on the Eagles of being that with Carson Wentz. Yeah. No one. So in other words, at some point in time, somebody got to step up. If I'm throwing you the ball and you are dropping pass after pass after pass, I got to be able to look at the quarterback and say, yo, this ain't on him.
I was making many of these excuses for Wentz, and just as I was making
not the dropping of the passes,
but like I acknowledged it early in the season. But just as I was making for years the offensive line excuse for Eli, and as Eli aged, even though clearly the offensive line was terrible and he would have been better had it been better, at a certain point I had to look and go, okay, no, wait a minute. He has also regressed, whether it's part of that whole package and those external factors, whatever. But in the end, there's only so much you can separate out. What you do on the field is what you do on the field.
Max, if this was Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, and they were having those performances, you would be coming in here going, oh my gosh, he's overcoming so much around him. And I don't want to hear about the pony because he's had to do so much and talking about Greg Ward played college quarterback and this and that. But since it's Carson Wentz and you've taken this stance on Carson Wentz, you can't look at the past 2 weeks and go, no other quarterback has had that fourth quarter performance. No other quarterbacks, Max. How do you run from that? Your words admit what's happening.
Right. I'm not denying that. I think there are signs that things are turning for the better. For example, now I'm saying he's a top 15 quarterback this year, and you're saying top 10, and I think that's debatable. He's probably in between.
So when you say times are getting better because it's top 15, you saying you had him lower than top 15?
For part of this year, he's ticking up. He's ticking up, but
when they need him to the most.
But guys,
so that's praiseworthy.
But really, what's predictable is Orlovsky will come in and defend Wentz almost no matter what happens. I'll give him credit for what he does
because I look at the picture and go, it's bigger than quarterback stinks or quarterback's playing great. I look at the picture and go, what's the quarterback doing? What does he have, and what are the results? It's a math equation to me. And if the quarterback is not playing well but still has the pieces, then it's on the quarterback. But if the quarterback isn't playing well, I don't look at a guy in 2017 and go, man, he was Patrick Mahomes for Patrick Mahomes. He was an MVP caliber player. All of a sudden, he can't play? All of a sudden, he can't play anymore? Or are there variables
there are variables,
impact?
But that can also affect the quarterback.
And then when that player overcomes those variables, that's when you get into special. That's when you get into something that is very difficult to cultivate and put your finger on.
If you're arguing, does Carson Wentz have special qualities? Yes. And by the way, I pointed out because I was.
And he's answering the biggest questions that people like you have thrown out there.
Because I was at the Rams game where he hurt himself, and he went out and completed a couple of passes on a leg that he shouldn't have been out on the field.
Right.
I think very highly of his talent, of his toughness, of his desire to be great and all those things. That doesn't preclude me from saying what I see. And if you want to ask me,
you said there's no reason to praise him.
Has he regressed? The answer is yes. He's regressed as a quarterback.
Simple question.
His instincts have regressed.
Simple question.
Even.
For everything that's happened to their team this year, right, and everything that's happened specifically to the offense and the injuries, has he been set up to succeed or fail this year?
Not to succeed.
Okay, so he's been set up to fail?
I wouldn't say he's been set up to fail, but
because of variables around him, not purposefully, but because of
you could say
he's been set up to fail.
You could say set up to fail.
Is he succeeding?
Well, excuse me, with one caveat. He's in the weakest division, maybe in the history of the NFL.
They got 3 losses by 1 play.
Yeah.
And dropped touchdowns.
By the way, all of San Francisco's losses are by 1 play. I'll bet you they'll get some criticism today.
So he's been set up to fail, and he's succeeding. Conversation
Not
over.
Succeeding? They're 500.
He's got a play-in game. Basically, Sunday is a playoff game.
Right.
So he's got
is
his
Dak
team.
Prescott as good as Carson Wentz?
No.
Is he should he really be in the same class as Carson Wentz?
Gentlemen, I would like to remind y'all that this is a debate and argument that is going on about a quarterback that is 7-7. Just want y'all to know.
Yeah, 7-7.
He's 7-7.
Sure.
We're going to find out Sunday.
Correct.
What's he going to do against Dallas and the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott?
Yeah, he's got to play the Giants twice and Washington
all right.
twice.
Oh, by the way, Max Kellerman.
Yeah.
I'd like to remind you, Friday, you'll be in Philly. You might want to chill.
Oh.
Not at all. By the way, Eagles fans understand what I'm talking about. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.